Do you know anything about ayahuasca? Oh yeah, let's talk about ayahuasca a little bit.
All right, so I'm here with Chris Kilham. He's the author of the Ayahuasca Test Pilot's Handbook. And I'm really glad and happy to be talking with you. Also, because at this point in my life, I've done ayahuasca journeys 5 or 6 times now, and they've been probably the most rewarding experience, that I've had in my life, or as rewarding as anything else in my life.
Right.
How'd you stumble upon ayahuasca? How'd you?
Well, ayahuasca, which just to fill viewers in, is a potent psychoactive brew made by shamans in the Amazon for healing and for spiritual journeying. So a true psychedelic. Why and how ayahuasca, for example, can heal trauma or grief or loss, maybe even in a single night, can help people to step out of addictions that may be very long-term, we don't really have all the answers for. Some people pursue a chemical answer. It's somehow working in the limbic system of the brain, helping to reset things that are fundamental to our basic operation. Those of us who've drunk ayahuasca a lot say yes, and there's also a spirit explanation that the spirits of the plants themselves and the thoughtful, careful administration of a ceremony by a talented shaman enables you to go into other dimensional spaces where the same rules of pain and anxiety and depression and fear and loss and grief don't apply. Just like when you dream, gravity doesn't necessarily apply, which is why sometimes you can fly in a dream instead of falling to your death, okay? In the ayahuasca space, instead of experiencing what we typically experience in this daily life, we step into entirely other dimensions.
I remember I did one journey, and after the journey, and it was a very potent batch. And this one girl, she was explaining that she was lost in the light show, but she didn't know what she was gaining from that as far as insight. And I told her, "Did you let go to it?" And it becomes very intense to let go to it. And she admitted that when she would let go to it, she would purge.
Right.
And I thought, well, that's the exercise in and of itself. If you let go to these intense visions or these dimensions that I do believe you're going through, you tend to also be able to let go of, that negative energy that we experience in the material world, or whatever traumas that we haven't processed. I didn't purge the first time, and I think it's because I confronted myself so much before that first time. I went there to confront my weaknesses, but I ended up confronting my weaknesses, in the process leading up to it. That when I got there, I just found my strength. And I remember seeing, you say about like some of the things that you see, there's obviously a lot of sacred geometry, but there is a dimension where you see a lot of organic shapes, eyes, limbs.
Sure.
And they kind of look monstrous, but they're not scary. In fact, to me, it was like my demons actually asking me for sympathy. And that's the kind of insight that I got. I definitely felt connected to something outside of me. And and the things that I was seeing were not a product of chemical reactions in my brain, but were tying into a consciousness even beyond mine.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's the spiritual thing that I definitely get, and that I want people to experience in their own time, I guess.
Yes. Somehow, ayahuasca enables us to hack the cosmic motherboard. So all of the programming, the social programming, the biological programming, we are able to understand that and select what works and reject what doesn't.
Now, what are psychiatrists, the psychology boards, the pharmaceutical companies, especially in this country, saying about ayahuasca now that it's starting to, be shown on CNN and people are starting to study it?
Well, I mean, the people in the pharmaceutical companies, to the extent that they're aware of ayahuasca, are just shaking their heads because they can't do anything. They can only sit there and kind of cry in their soup, I have met many medical doctors, and especially many psychiatrists, who are now going to Peru, going to Ecuador, going to Colombia, going to Brazil. They're sitting with shamans, they're drinking ayahuasca, they're making discoveries, they're taking notes, they're observing what's happening to other people, they're bringing others down. This is a very strong thoughtful movement. And you have two large South American churches, Santo Daime and União de Vegetal, that are leading ceremonies all over the world with thousands and thousands of people on an annual basis. And, you know, some of the people who show up are doctors and psychiatrists, and they're going, okay, I'm hearing tales of healing from things that I've never seen healed in my practice, psoriasis, you know, things that theoretically are totally non-responsive diseases. This is worth understanding. So my experience is there's a lot of interest, a lot of inquiry, and people are trying to figure out how to work with this. And it's hard to work with a psychedelic when maybe you're sitting there in ceremony at night and you get swallowed by a giant anaconda. You know, this is not normal medicine.
Well, you know, and to that, one of the things, one of the things that, you know, I'm very passionate about ayahuasca, and I'm very passionate about, you know, I'm not the kind of person that says anyone should do anything.
Right.
But I definitely believe people can do something like this.
Yes.
And I've been in, you know, I've been getting very spiritual and getting new agey. I know my friends hate when I use that term, but I mean, it's for lack of a better term. And, you know, I sit with some people after yoga, and most of them are into this, obviously, but there's always like that one person, you know, who's like, well, why do you, a person who's never done it and never will do it, lobs this one. Well, I don't need to have some psychedelic experience or do ayahuasca. Listen, maybe if you sit under a tree and you fast for 40 days and 40 nights like a Buddha or a Jesus, or do something like, maybe you'll trip that hard and you'll connect to the divine. But any other way, this is a plant. It's natural. It's here for us. And to disavow it somehow and put it in the class of a cheap high, or just a cheap thrill, or escapism. You're escaping your problems instead of the opposite.
Right.
You're wanting to ignore reality instead of wanting to understand reality in a broader sense. It drives me fucking crazy. And I say,
well, you see.